The Black Hollow Forest. A notice to the listener. This story is based on accounts, documents, tapes, and testimonies collected in the town of Black Hollow, Oregon. The following events correspond only to the central chapters of the investigation, preserved as a final record. After returning to the town where I grew up, I discovered that the forest surrounding Black Hollow doesn't just observe, it learns, chooses, and exacts its toll. These chapters record the moment I understood that the next sacrifice was me. I swore I'd never go back to Black Hollow. 12 years away weren't enough to erase the scent of the forest. Damp, old, like something breathing slowly. The letter arrived on a Tuesday, no return address, just one handwritten sentence. She still remembers you. As I crossed the rusty town sign, I felt the same pressure in my chest as when I was a teenager. The trees were closer to the road, or maybe they always had been. At the local bar, no one asked me why I came back. They just stared. A woman dropped a glass when I mentioned the forest. "Don't talk about that," the bartender whispered. "She listens." That same night, sirens. An 8-year-old boy disappeared 50 meters from home. No footprints, no screams. The forest was too silent, and I knew it. It had begun again. The next morning, I accompanied the search. I knew those trails since I was a child. I knew where each bend led. But something was wrong. Familiar paths ended in alleys of dense trees. Others appeared where they had never existed before. One of the volunteers came back crying. The trail led me back to the same place. 3 times. The forest was playing a trick. That night, the sound began. Dry, rhythmic tapping, like someone testing wood with their knuckles, then whistling. The worst came last, a child's voice coming from the forest. "Mom?" No child was there. I followed the sound to a cabin that didn't appear on any map. Inside, symbols carved into the walls. Spirals, eyes, handprints, too small to be from adults. On the floor, animal bones arranged in a circle. Something had been done there. Inside the cabin, I found an old tape recorder. The tape still worked. When I pressed play, I heard my own voice. "If you're hearing this, don't trust the forest." I didn't remember recording that. All the trees around the cabin had marks, except one. It was intact, clean, as if respected. When I touched the trunk, I felt something pulsing. 2 who had disappeared years ago reappeared, thinner, quieter. They avoided the light, and they didn't blink. I confronted the sheriff. He looked me in the eyes and said, "Some things need to keep feeding." At that moment, I understood. The forest didn't hunt on its own. The sheriff tried to kick me out of town that very night. He said I was reopening old wounds. That's when I found the map. In the municipal library archives, among newspapers from 1890, there was a folded, yellowed map signed by Army surveyors. On it, the forest occupied half the region. In the center, a hand-drawn symbol, a clearing that no longer existed, and a warning written in pencil: "Do not cross after sunset." That morning, the sky disappeared. I left the motel and looked up. Nothing. No stars. No moon. As if someone had erased the roof of the world. From the forest came a low sound. It wasn't wind. It wasn't animals. It was breathing. My mother died when I was 16. Even so, I heard her voice. "Come home," she said, coming from inside the trees. Every detail was perfect. The tone, the pause before my name. I took a step toward the forest. Something inside me screamed to stop. A former resident agreed to speak with me. Too old to run, too scared to lie. He recounted that in 1893, the town's founders made a deal. The forest would protect Black Hollow. In exchange, it would receive lives, always children. I began to see her in the distance, small, still, among the trees. When I blinked, she moved. She never ran. She never spoke. She only watched. They found a body during the search. Not buried, embedded. The tree roots pierced the chest, arms, and face. The coroner refused to touch it. "This didn't die here," he said. "This has been accepted." The town church had been locked for years. Inside, I found cassette tapes hidden under the altar. The old priest's voice trembled. "She learns fast. She already knows how to pray." The last tape ended with a scream. Everything pointed to the same year. The year 5 children disappeared in a single week. The year my father joined the city council. The year the forest grew. I discovered old photos. The forest ablaze. City men with torches. They tried to destroy it. 3 days later, the fire went out on its own. On the 4th day, new trees sprouted, closer together. On the last night before everything crumbled, I heard my name echo. Not once, hundreds. Overlapping voices, adults, children, dead. The whole forest knew who I was, and it was calling me. The entrance was behind a dead file cabinet, locked with a padlock too new for an old building. In the basement, I found numbered boxes, disappearance reports, always closed as accidents, always with the same signature, my father's. The minutes revealed nighttime meetings. They called it the Forest Council, longtime residents, sheriffs, priests. It wasn't worship, it was maintenance. In the most recent records, something had changed. Before the forest took over, now it chose. There were notes about voice imitation, about name repetition. Chapter 24. The Last Patrol. An incomplete report described Officer Miller's last patrol. Entered the forest at 10:14 p.m. No return. The last line was blurred. She asked for help. I used the old map at dawn. The coordinates didn't match anything modern. Even so, the trail opened up on its own as if it had been awaited. The clearing was perfectly circular. No insects, no birds. The ground showed deep spiral marks, as if something very heavy had been dragged repeatedly to the center. There, I felt the physical certainty that this place didn't exist for humans. My watch stopped at 6:17 a.m. My cell phone showed the same time, even after hours of walking in circles. I tried to record a video. The recording lasted 3 seconds. When I listened, there were more than 20 minutes of audio. Just breathing and a deep, constant sound, like an underground heartbeat. As I left the clearing, the sun was already setting. I had gone in that morning. The diary was buried inside a plastic bag, tied with strands of hair. Sarah described the child she observed. She said the child copied everything, gestures, posture. On one of the pages, Sarah wrote, "Today she tried to smile. She couldn't. Her muscles wouldn't obey." The last sentence was shaky. "She's learning from me." I dug where the map indicated ancient markings. I found coffins. Some contained human remains too recent to be historical. Others were empty but scratched inside. Nail marks. They weren't graves. They were temporary containment structures. At 11:41 p.m., the whistling began. Long, arrhythmic. It came from the forest, from the rooftops, from the empty streets. The police radio transmitted only a static, and underneath it, someone repeated names. Mine was the last. I returned to the motel in shock. On the bed, I found a note written in wet earth. The handwriting was identical to mine. Now you understand. Outside, the forest was moving. It wasn't waiting anymore. It had chosen. The next morning, there were footprints around the motel. Barefoot, small. They started in the forest and ended at my door. Inside, something scratched the wood. I returned to the clearing. I heard movement beneath the ground, like fingernails scraping earth. The roots twisted slowly. The forest wasn't the body, it was the skin. In the final files, I found the minutes of the agreement. My father's name was there, responsible for the offer. My name appeared next to it as collateral. In 1997, something went wrong. A child escaped. The forest didn't receive full payment. Since then, it had been charging interest in lives. I searched for the record of the child who escaped. There was no birth certificate. There were no photos. There was no grave. The forest erased those it couldn't take with it. Trees sprouted in the streets. Roots broke sidewalks. Cars were swallowed up. The city woke up smaller, the forest bigger. At the edge of the woods, a house appeared, old, with the door open. I recognized the interior. It was the house of my childhood. Clocks ran backward. Photos changed when I blinked. I saw versions of myself I didn't remember living. The house breathed. I sat down to write. The pen moved on its own. Words appeared on the paper. I learned from you. My handwriting. It wasn't my hand. The recorder turned on by itself. My voice spoke. I accept. I didn't remember saying that, but the forest did. I accept. I didn't remember saying that, but the forest did. The next morning, the sheriff didn't show up. The patrol car was parked in front of his house. Door open, engine cold. On the ground, barefoot footprints leading into the forest. No one organized a search. Everyone understood. I received another tape. This time there was no voice, just two words scratched onto the plastic: stay or go. In the background of the recording, I heard footsteps, synchronized with my breathing. I told no one. I entered the forest at dusk. The trees parted to make way. I felt no fear. I felt recognition. In the center, I found the source of the sound. It wasn't a creature. It was a collection of pulsating roots, intertwined like veins. Memories flowed through them, lives slowly digested. I saw 1893, men kneeling, whispered promises. The forest didn't demand blood. It demanded continuity, someone to stay. The city slept. The forest breathed. I understood the role. No sacrifice. Guard. I yelled for her to stop. The sound returned amplified. 1,000 voices, 1,000 echoes. Silence followed. For the first time in decades, nothing happened. No whistles, no voices, no footsteps. The forest remained still. The city continued, smaller, quieter. They say I left, that I went away that night. They are right. If this recording reached you, the cycle continues. The forest doesn't forget, it learns. And now, it knows your name.